You've come out publicly recently and talking about the fact that they've tried to do the same with you. So what was that process like?
How it was said was very strategic in the fact they started with fear and then they went to flattery and then very carefully worded what benefit it would be if I were to cross.
From a riding she wasn't supposed to win, from maybe a life set she wasn't supposed to have, from a seat she's not supposed to leave. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest on with us on Northern Perspective today. She's become a very dear friend since we met her during the RIT period, and she has been tirelessly advocating not just for herself, but for victims of drug abuse and drug addiction around the country. And she's an inspiration to us all. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kelly DeRidder to Northern Perspective.
Thank you. Such a lovely intro.
So, Kelly, we first met during the campaign period, I believe.
We did.
And we came out to help campaign. We came out to do the get out the vote. What was the campaign like for you when you first embarked on this journey?
A complete whirlwind. I was actually became candidate 2 weeks before the writ drop. And so we were a team of 4 in the very beginning of the election. And we just spent our entire time grinding it out and working as hard as we possibly could, strategize the best we can during the campaign. It was a whirlwind of a time. I owe so much to so many people for pulling that one out, including you guys. I attribute a piece of my win absolutely to you. I needed to find a way to get more volunteers through our door, and inviting you did that for us. We had about 20 before you came to support us, and it was actually advanced polls that you came to support us for, and we had over 80 people show up that day, and most of them were retained throughout the rest of the election. So
Wonderful.
yeah, that was the impact you had on our campaign, which was remarkable. And then we just really tried to keep it family focused, and we didn't just do pizzas and things like that on Super Saturdays. We would cook. My husband loves to cook, so we did brisket and we did lasagna and shawarma and all kinds of wonderful things, because those who eat together win together, and that was the theme. And so we just put in as much as we possibly could in those days. And then on election night, I was actually incredibly calm, because I was thinking, we've done everything we can possibly do. And now the choice is not ours. And so now it's up to the voter to make the decision, and it shall be what it shall be. And we just can know that we worked really hard and did what we needed to do to win it. And it turns out here I am, a member of Parliament for Kitchener Centre.
And maybe that's how you'd know, because our message to our viewers throughout the election, because people were constantly concerned about the polls, and we would repeatedly say, ignore the polls, assume you're behind and work your tail off.
Yes.
That was what we said. And the other message we said to people was, make sure that when we get to the end of this election, you can look back and say, there's nothing else I could have possibly have done. And maybe that's why that contributed to that calm, is that you were at peace with yourself, because you were confident that there was nothing left to chance, and everything that was within your power you did. And win or lose, you would have been at peace for that. So that's actually a fascinating insight into election night.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right, is that I was at peace because there was nothing that we could have changed. Nothing. We did everything we could have possibly done to win that election. And turns out we did enough.
So you wrestled that seat away from the Green Party, which is fantastic.
Yes.
It was one of the seats where the Conservatives were probably not expected to win, and there was a few of those in the election.
There
were. But this all kind of comes to a head in the last couple of months, because there was seats that the Conservatives were expected to win, maybe not expected to win, but in the end, the Liberals have been doing virtually everything in their power to undermine some of those wins. and have been successful to lure not just conservatives, but also folks from the NDP over to manufacture a majority. Talk us through when, the first floor crosser happened and, what your reaction was and what was going on, even within, some of your colleagues' minds when this was starting to happen.
So even from the very beginning, I realized very quickly the reality of what was happening isn't what was being told to Canadians. And instantly I was frustrated, even with the first floor crosser, because the first floor crosser was Chris, and he told the legacy media that if he were deputy speaker, that we wouldn't be in this position. And so instead of digging in deeper to what that statement actually means, it was just blamed on, our caucus and our leader. And being a new caucus member, I couldn't see the connection there, because as a new member, I was incredibly supported. We have open communication in our team. Our leadership is not top down. It's the other way around. And so I was like, why is this what's being told in the media when it isn't at all the reality? And even Chris himself said the reality, that he was upset he wasn't acclaimed to be deputy speaker, which in itself is undemocratic, because we went to vote and our caucus did not vote him to be deputy speaker. And so he was upset with he wanted an undemocratic result. And he was upset with that. So then he crossed the floor. And that in itself, you can say it's about your constituents, but when your constituents are mad at what you've done, what's the reality of that also? So even from the very first, I noticed there was a trend of how this was going to be told to Canadians of what's actually happening here.
Yeah, and then we had Michael Ma cross, and that was incredible in itself, because it wasn't even just the fact that he crossed, but it was the way that it happened. He went to the Conservative Christmas party, didn't even purchase a ticket, said, "Oh, I'll pay you tomorrow."
Yeah.
Got a picture with Pierre and Anna and his family, and then the next day just moves on over. That, there's just a manner in which that happened. It's disrespectful to constituents, but there seems to be a lack of respect in many of these folks in even the way that they cross.
So I actually initiated our first ever Secret Santa.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and it was really fun. He partook in that Secret Santa, whereas he took a gift and didn't give one, even in it, and then didn't return. So that Secret Santa was the Wednesday before the Christmas party. And then actually Kurt Holman is the one who gave him the present for Secret Santa, and he was wondering, I wonder if he actually took it. And sure enough, he did. And then he was supposed to gift Jamil and didn't. And so I had to right the wrong on that one, and I did the Secret Santa for Jamil, because I felt as though it was, I had a bit of responsibility there. But like, as you say, he, not only the Christmas party, but then we had this really fun thing in our caucus that he completely disrespected that as well, and took a gift and didn't give, and then crossed the floor the next day. To me, I know it's small, but it shows character.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we heard about that story too, and we kind of had a little internal thought about it, and we call it Justice for Jamil. So we're actually sending him a Northern Perspective T-shirt to try and right the Secret Santa wrong.
I sent him a gift too to right the wrong, because it was my Secret Santa. So
well, there we go. Now we're doubly righting the wrong. So so justice for Jamil.
Right? Yeah, justice for Jamil. Yes.
Now, all throughout this period, we were hearing from some of the MPs that we talked to that they've been kind of contacted. Mm-hmm. And what we've also heard is that when the Liberals first reach out, they don't, it's not, hey, will you cross the floor and, here's what we'll give you for it. It's more subtle, and it's more just passing comments. And you've come out publicly recently and talking about the fact that they've tried to do the same with you. So what was that process like?
So it was just a phone call um, from a member across the aisle. And I found it quite strategic, actually, myself, because to me, how it was said was very strategic in the fact they started with fear and then they went to flattery and then very carefully worded what benefit it would be if I were to cross. So the first part was they told me that I would Kitchener Center would have the Liberals would put in a candidate that would be supported by both the Liberals and the Green Party. And as a conservative, I don't stand a chance winning the next election because it was a close margin in the previous. And so I said, okay, we'll leave that to the voter. Luckily, I'm not a person that reacts to fear. I actually dig in my heels a little deeper when you come at me with that. And then the second was, oh, I've seen what you do in committee, the Science and Research Committee. You seem very central in your questioning and just trying to get to the bottom of things. And also you've taken a real interest in AI and digital policy. I think there'd be a place for you on our team under that portfolio. I'm like, okay, thanks for pumping my tires a little bit, but still not cross A. And then the last piece was, Kitchener Center is a technology hub, and which I completely agree with. I've coined Kitchener Center Canada's innovation capital because we are. And they said, well, it'd be very beneficial for you to be on the side of government to support your technology sector in Kitchener Center.
And this is interesting because we also heard Marilyn Gladue kind of hint at the fact that the Liberals were promising money, promising just resources for the riding if a Conservative MP had switched to the Liberals. So your case isn't the first time we've heard that. That seems very undemocratic. It sends a message to the public that unless you have a Liberal MP, you are not getting funding in your riding from a Liberal government.
Well, and what message does that send to Canadians that basically if you don't vote for the Liberals, you don't count?
Really. Marilyn, again, a piece of why I decided to do the video, which in no way did I think ever it would go viral. I had no idea that that was going to happen. Because I was also doing my own private members bill the same week. And so it was crazy week. I did not expect it to go. I guess I underestimated how much this was actually on Canadians' minds of what was happening here with the floor crossings. And the reason why I decided to do it is because, again, Marilyn said it herself. She said in the press conference that this is good for me. It's good for my riding. So she told everybody. And again, instead of it being investigated further, it was placed on the Conservatives in our leadership again. And so that's why I decided there's two reasons. First, Chris and Marilyn both telling the truth in those conferences and it not going any further of what the truth is of why they decided to floor cross. And then the third was, it was I found it very strategically planned that the floor crossings happened with the by-elections after. And so again, in the legacy media, it was they swept the by-elections. And I'm like, but that's actually completely false because all the by-elections did was maintain the general election results. And to say sweep the by-elections, like, listen, there's deep blue ridings, there's deep red ridings. Like, we know ridings that are going to stay blue or red. And the only one that was a coin flip was in Quebec, but the other two we knew were going to stay Liberal seats. So all it did is maintain the general election results, and the majority was not won through those by-elections. It was manufactured through the floor crossings, and it was active recruitment. And so I was like, again, what's happening here? Why is what's being told it's not the truth of what's actually happening here. We have to get back to the truth in this country of what, and to me, it's testing the limits of our democracy. It's fine. The argument is it's perfectly legal. We have a Westminster system. People can cross, but this has never happened before. Active recruitment for a majority government has never happened in Canada. But not one person, not even the NDP floor crosser, ever said that they no longer align with the party that they ran under in the election. Not one of them has said that. And in fact, our party hasn't changed anything from the platform at all from the election. So there's no way they don't align with the Conservatives anymore. This is something different. And this is what's testing our democracy. And so I was like, I have to tell the story. I have to, because to me, this isn't okay.
And you're not the first person that we've heard this from. You're not the first MP we've heard this from. We've heard of, I believe, at least 3 others that also received phone calls that were promised something. And we haven't named them publicly because they haven't come out themselves. We want to respect their privacy. But this is an issue. It's not just 1 or 2 MPs. It's a lot of them. And I'm concerned about the legality of a governing party approaching MPs from the opposite side. And even if they're just suggesting, oh, you know, there might be a cabinet position for you over here, how is that not illegal?
Yeah, so I can't really answer that personally myself. Remember, I'm a year in. But what I can say is that, again, a piece of the backlash is, well, there was a bill last session that if people were to cross the floor, then it should trigger an immediate by-election. And everybody voted against that bill. So how come now you're complaining about what's happening? And I've asked many caucus members now if they would vote the same today as they did then. And the answer is no, because again, this is something different. This is where we have to question how this majority was made, where the recruitment came in, and what do we need to change in Parliament to make sure that the voter's choice remains the voter's choice. I think these are the questions that we need to start asking now, because we've been tested, and there's always things that change when things have been tested. And here we are again. And so these are the questions that we need to be asking in Parliament.
So the one thing that we get asked, and it keeps coming up in the public discourse about the floor crossing, is, who is making these offers? Who's making these overtures? Now, I guess my question to you is, does it really matter who it was? Because from what we've heard, some of them may be MPs, some of them may be senators, some of them may be staffers. Does it really matter in terms of who specifically made that offer? Or does this all come down to none of this is even authorized without Mark Carney and his inner circle?
So I can't unequivocally say it isn't authorized without Mark Carney's approval, but my feeling and my gut tells me that this is a leadership-driven campaign for a majority government. That's what was the plan all along, is get enough people to form a majority coming from leadership to say, and then the recruiters, are our colleagues that we've built relationship with. But what I don't respect is having a majority unelected majority government. And that's what I'm telling here today. That's what matters.
Well, and to the point, you look at the pattern here. To kind of steal some words from Chantal Hébert about the committees going dark. She'd said, I don't believe for a second that 4 different MPs in the Liberal Party just woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm going to put forth a motion to turn off the cameras in committee. This was something that was obviously orchestrated from above. You look at the pattern with the floor crossing. There were even rumblings about this right after the election when Parliament first sat back last May, because there was questions. We've heard that the Liberal Party is asking members of the NDP if they're willing to cross. Oh, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the first 2 floor crossers right before Christmas. Then there was a question to Mark Carney in his year-end interview on Global News. You know, are you trying to lure people over? Oh, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. And then 2 more floor crossers. And then all of a sudden these by-elections come up, to your point, to legitimize or try to legitimize in the minds of Canadians. Oh, well, we didn't get this majority via floor crossing. We got it because we had these elections and that secured our majority. So when you look at the pattern and how this has played out, I don't think anyone with any even mild sense of political strategy can disagree that this doesn't seem like this was done on a whim independently by a bunch of people.
Agreed. It's just absolutely is, you know, that's why I touched on it before. Is that, you know, again, the legacy media kept saying they swept the by-elections so they got their majority government. It's not true. It's literally not true. It just maintained the general election results. The majority government was attributed to floor crossing, period, bottom line. And independently run, no. Just like you said with committee, is how come the very first day or second day after we went dark? This wasn't just an independent decision. It was get off the books what they're wanting to investigate right now, get it dealt with, and then we can go back in camera or go back into public, sorry, when these controversial things are gone. And that's, you know, what happened even in my committee. My committee went dark because we were wanting to investigate the concrete $250 million concrete pad out east and how that ever happened. And so we went dark. And the unfortunate part about going dark, not only is it out of the public eye, but now I'm put under embargo for 30 years. I can't talk about what we talked about in that committee that day.
And that's why it's a good thing that we can. So, and that's the importance of actual media that is committed to holding government to account and not just, you know, looking forward to their next paycheck that comes down from the government. So, so it's a crazy, crazy political world that we live in. And who would have thought this would have been more crazy than Justin Trudeau's world?
So Canadians are concerned we're having committee go dark, which Parliament is supposed to be open to the public, except for in some very, very niche circumstances. And we're having a majority formed pretty much without the consent of Canadians, because Canadians altogether voted for a minority parliament, and that's not what we have. So what can Canadians do to make their voices heard, to express their frustrations, to try to fix this?
I think they need to reach out to their local MPs first and foremost, and the fact that committees are going dark, let them know that they're not okay with it. Committee work is where, in my opinion, the best parliamentary work happens.
Absolutely.
We scrutinize legislation, we do studies so that we can advise the government on how to do better. It's a place where opposition literally can hold government to account to make sure that all voices are heard in Canada, and it's at the committee table. So if you don't like seeing committees go dark, which I can't imagine any Canadian would, because it's where real accountability happens, reach out to your MP, get vocal about it, sign petitions so that, you know, we can do the petitions in the House. Even is get involved and tell the current government this is not okay. This is not a democratic Canada, and you need to be held accountable for the work that you're doing while you're government. And the only way to do that is to keep public informed about what's actually happening in government. And so just get vocal. If you're not okay with it, get vocal.
Do you think there should be some investigations into these floor crossings?
I do. Also, though, I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to figure out exactly, because it will come to fruition. And we'll see it and we'll know. And you guys will be able to amplify it because, you know, positions will be had or money will be put into the ridings or whatever will happen. is going to happen in this session. So I think even in itself, it's going to organically play out. And if what I'm doing today, I don't think I have a lot of power at all, but maybe bringing awareness to it will stop some of that from happening. It might. And if it does, then I think another thing you might see is some of those floor crossers go independent. That's just my own gut feeling about the situation, is that they've crossed, they might not get what they were told, so they'll go independent.